We'd been married for 15 years. And I'm not the kind of person who walks away over one suspicious situation, but this wasn't just one moment. It's been building that constant feeling of being treated like I'm stupid. He went on a 2-week trip. With friends, fishing. Remote area, no signal, all very believable. I didn't question it. I even thought it was good for him. Then he came back. And the first thing I noticed, no tan, not even a little, like he hadn't spent 2 weeks outdoors at all. I joked, "So were you fishing in a pool?" And that's when it started. He went into this detailed story about going to lakes every day, catching fish, how great it all was, too detailed, too fast, like he had rehearsed it. I listened and realized I don't believe a word. So I said, "Okay, show me the pictures. No way you caught fish and didn't take any photos." And that's where it fell apart. Well, the photos are on my friend's phone." He broke it. At that point, it wasn't even about hurt. It was about how ridiculous the lie was. At least lie properly. Say you stayed inside drinking. Say you went driving around. Give me something I can pretend to believe. I probably would have taken it. We argued. Badly. Started sleeping in separate rooms. A week later, he books an appointment with a doctor, a urologist. Says he has a urinary infection. And that's when something in me just clicked. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just went and filed for divorce. Because at some point, you realize it's not about one trip. Not even about cheating, if that's what happened. It's about being treated like you won't notice. Like you'll accept anything. And I'm done with that. I grew up in an orphanage. No relatives, no family, no one at all. I gave birth to my son the day after I turned 18. That was supposed to be the beginning of my life, but instead everything became difficult all at once. While I was pregnant, my boyfriend died. A motorcycle accident. We had already filed our marriage papers. We were supposed to get married before the baby was born. His parents cut me off immediately, like I had never existed. I was alone, with a newborn, and a life that suddenly felt too heavy to carry. I was given an apartment, but that was it. I couldn't work with a baby in my arms. There was no money. There were days when I literally had nothing to eat. The benefits back then were barely enough to survive. And that's when she appeared in my life. A neighbor from the playground. She was 20. Also from an orphanage. Our whole building was full of people like us. She had her own painful story. She was assaulted and got pregnant. She didn't have an abortion. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she was talked out of it. At first, she struggled to accept her daughter. She said the child reminded her too much of the man, and it was hard for her to even look at her. But she loved my son. Truly. She would take care of him all day while I ran from one job interview to another, trying to find any kind of work. Eventually, I did. But it didn't get easier. I had to study while working, full-time, part-time, everything at once, and still be a mother. I held on the best I could. Until kindergarten, my son was basically raised with her. I gave her more than half of my salary, made sure both kids had everything they needed. And somehow, we made it through. Step by step. The kids went to kindergarten. She found a job too. We both started building something stable. Later, marriage. For both of us, more children. And the most surprising part, over time, she built a real, loving relationship with her daughter. And we never drifted apart. Not just neighbors. Not just friends. Something closer to family. Soon, my closest friend and I are going to our children's wedding. They grew up together. Always side by side. And at some point, that turned into love. Now they're getting married. Sometimes I stop and think, how did we even get here? No support, no easy start, no one to guide us. But we did it. I'm happy for them. And honestly, I'm happy for us too. Because we made it.
We were together for almost 5 years. He was trying to build a business. He really was. But by the time he was 34, he still hadn't achieved any real stability or success. I saw that clearly, and I still stayed. Because I loved him. Because I believed in him. And because I earned enough to not worry about money. I covered for him. Especially in front of my friends. I wanted him to look like someone who had it together. So a new necklace? He bought it for me. Earrings? Also from him. In reality, I paid for everything. Then I bought an apartment. He moved in with me. But even then, I didn't tell the truth. I told my friends that I was living at his place, like it was his success, his achievement. Looking back, I don't even fully understand why I did that. Maybe to protect the image. And then that image collapsed. One of my friends texted me. And yes, the quotation marks matter now. She told me that she and my boyfriend had been seeing each other behind my back for a couple of months. In that moment, I didn't explode. I just felt empty. No screaming, no confrontation, just this quiet realization that everything I thought was real wasn't. I didn't argue with him. I simply told him to move out of my apartment. That was it. It hurt more than I can describe. But if I'm being honest, there was another feeling too, not a pretty one. A sense of satisfaction. Because I could clearly imagine her face when she found out the truth. That her successful man was actually someone I had been supporting. That the apartment was mine. That the whole image wasn't real. He tried to come back, texted, called, apologized, tried to beg for another chance. But when he realized I wasn't going to change my mind, he stopped. And honestly, that was probably the only decent thing he did in the end.
I used to work at a bank. It wasn't perfect, but it was stable. There was growth, potential, a clear path forward, and that's where I fell for her. She was my colleague at first. It started small. Conversations, jokes, little moments. Nothing dramatic. But I got pulled in before I even realized it. Then she got promoted and became my boss. That's when everything started falling apart. I tried to handle it. I kept telling myself, it's work, separate it. But I couldn't. I couldn't see her as a manager. Every request, every comment felt personal. I was constantly thinking about her, watching her not as a boss but as someone I had feelings for, and that made everything harder. Work became exhausting. Focusing became impossible. Every day felt like this constant pressure I couldn't shake off. At some point, I decided I couldn't keep going like that. Either I stayed and slowly burned out, or I made a move. So I made one. I quit. In my head, it felt like a big gesture. Like I was choosing us, like it was something meaningful she would notice, maybe even appreciate. Spoiler, she didn't. No reaction. No understanding. Nothing. It was like it didn't matter at all. And here's where I am now. No job. 4 months without work. And on top of that, I didn't even get my final paycheck after quitting, which is a whole separate problem I now have to deal with. Meanwhile, she just stayed where she was. Moved on like nothing happened. And now I'm sitting here realizing that I made the worst decision. Not because I fell in love, but because I believed it mattered enough to change my entire life. Turns out, it only mattered to me.
My ex worked as a taxi driver. His schedule was already tough. 24 hours on, 48 hours off. We didn't see each other much, but at least it made sense. Then suddenly, he switched to a 24 on, 24 off schedule. He said his mom needed money for treatment, that it was serious, urgent, and he had no choice but to work more. I believed him. Of course I did. When it's about someone's health, you don't question it. I didn't argue, didn't complain. I supported him, tried to be understanding. Yes, we barely saw each other anymore. Yes, he became more irritable, more distant, constantly exhausted. But I blamed it on the workload. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Until one day, I saw him. He was parked in his car. With a girl. At first, I didn't think much of it. It's a taxi, right? Just a passenger. I would have kept thinking that, if she hadn't leaned in to kiss him before getting out. That's when everything inside me just stopped. No confusion, no, maybe I misunderstood. It was obvious. When I confronted him, the story got even worse. Turns out, he started flirting with a dispatcher to get better, more profitable rides. At first, it was just a strategy. Then it wasn't. He got involved, seriously. And at some point, he actually moved in with her. All while telling me stories about his sick mom and his exhausting schedule. Because, according to him, he didn't know how to tell me the truth. And honestly, what hurt the most wasn't even that he left. It was how easily he lied. How I was sitting there worrying, supporting him, while he was just living a completely different life. Sometimes the truth shows up in a single moment. And after that, there's no going back.
I was working a regular 5-day schedule. Left in the morning, came back in the evening. At the time, my girlfriend wasn't working, so she stayed home all day. Honestly, I had no reason to suspect anything. Everything came out completely by accident. I have a cat. One day, he marked a pile of clothes that was lying in her room. She came to me complaining, asking why the cat was acting like that. I apologized and said I'd take care of it, that I'd wash everything. So I gathered the clothes and started sorting through them, and then I just stopped. Because in that pile, there was a pair of men's boxers, not mine, and a few pairs of men's socks, also not mine. At that point, everything became obvious. No need for arguments, no need for explanations or guessing. I just picked them up, walked over to her, and handed them to her. No yelling, no drama, and told her to pack her things. Because there was nothing left to explain. Sometimes the truth shows up in the most unexpected ways.